Hello everybody, welcome back to a video that I disagreed with a while ago. I'm going to be talking about why I don't actually like using archers anymore. I used to think that archers were really good, and now I've come to the conclusion that they're not bad. I just don't want to use them. I think there are better options for ranged attack and more versatile options, namely my polearm crossbow build. I think that the polearm crossbow build, when especially if you are limited to 12 dudes with gladiators or lone wolf, is more flexible and can fight in more battles and is overall a more useful type of bro to have than the archer. Now, there are two archer builds that I'm talking about. I have the pure archer, and then there's the archer thrower hybrid. I think that if you're going to do an archer, it might be wise to do archer thrower hybrid because it is more useful in more battles. But at the same time, it might just be better to go pure archer because you would use it. So the reason I would use an archer is because the polearm crossbow hybrid can't fulfill that role as well. For example, necromancers. The archer is better at killing necromancers than a crossbow hybrid. And you're not using fucking throwing spears or javelins or whatever against a necromancer. So you might as well go pure archer. Similarly, if you're fighting the engineers and the mortars against southern city-states, you're not throwing a throwing axe at the engineer. So you just want the archer, like the bow. So you want a better the archer thrower hybrid compromises on some of the bow aspects in order to be more flexible and more generalist. But now somewhere on the screen, maybe it's the whole screen, I don't know. I've made a spreadsheet where we are comparing all the major types of enemies in the game, and then archers, archer throwers, and then the polearm crossbow hybrids. And we're going to judge on every time there's an X, that means they're good in that type of fight. Now I've broken up the crossbow polearm hybrids into melee and ranged because they can do both. So let's just go down. I have the picture on my phone in front of me. We're going to go down that list right now. So we have Brigands. Everybody gets +1 for Brigands, because Brigands in the late game are stupidly easy. If you're worried about the reason archers get a point is because they can kill marksmen, and marksmen are annoying. Other than that, and if you have headhunter on pure archers, then they get an extra point. You don't get headhunter on the crossbow or on the archer thrower, sorry. So if anything, I would rather have a pure archer than a regular archer. But since the brigands are so stupidly easy, everyone gets a point. Next up, we have nobles. Everyone again gets a point for nobles. For killing arbalisters, you want archers. Archers are better at killing arbalisters than the crossbow build is. But the crossbow build can still get it done. And once the arbalisters are dead, archers really fall off. You're not shooting through the shield wall of nobles. You don't get a lot of those billmen in the back you can shoot, but it's not always reliable, and sometimes they have heavy armor on. So I'd rather have the crossbow with its great armor pen and with the bill hook to do the massive armor damage, or the pike, or whatever the hell I'm using. So I would rather. Everyone gets a point. All right, next up is nomads. Nomads, archers don't get a point because nomad archers are terrible. Nomad archers don't do anything to you, so you never have to worry about nomad archers. So you're worrying about nomad melee men, like the outlaws, and bows don't do shit to them. I'm sorry, they just don't. Bows don't do anything. Crossbows, ranged in general doesn't do a lot to them. I think they have dodge. I think they have anticipation as well. So, if anything, the crossbow isn't great, but the crossbow does a shit ton of damage and a shit ton of armor pen. So one crossbow hit will probably do just as much as like 2 bow hits. So that is where the crossbow comes ahead. And then there's always the melee that the hybrid has. So that's huge. So the points go to the crossbow hybrid there. Next up, we have small orc camps. What I consider these are orc berserker and orc young camps. No warriors. archers are, like, pure archers I think are the best here, because you're killing those berserkers have no armor, or they have very little armor. So the crossbow's armor pen doesn't mean that much, because you're just shooting flesh. In which case, having 2 bow shots likely does more than a couple of crossbow hits, especially as that you have 3 archers, that's 6 bows. I'd much rather have 6 bow shots than 3 crossbow shots, like any day of the week. At the same time, though, so archer throwers also get a point, but at the same time, you can do these fights with crossbows. I don't have a lot of archers, so I will bring my crossbowmen. And the bill hooks are good for avoiding hits from orc berserkers. That's great. Orc young, not a threat. I wouldn't worry about this. Next up, we have big orc camps. Now, archers again get the point, or they would get the point for killing berserkers, because that's great. But then once they kill berserkers, they're pretty much useless. And then you have to worry about orcs getting on them, so they have to like run away a lot of the time. So they don't really get a point. Archer throwers could get the point, except for an archer thrower to hit a warrior, they have to be directly behind a frontliner to not get the, like the cover debuff, which means they'll get charged through. So you're fucked. There is a build where you have an archer thrower with a shield. You have a pure thrower with a shield, but that's a throwing build. We're not talking about archers right now, so the throwing build could work, but archer throwers themselves are just regular archers in this fight. But the polearm crossbow, you really want that melee to kill the orc warriors. We know this, so the melee gets the point here. Next up is goblins. Goblins, archer bow shots do a decent amount against goblins, and I have made videos in the past where my strategy is to just stand there and shield wall while my archers kill them. I've definitely evolved from that. It's too slow, it's kind of boring, and it really just relies. It's a stam fight. But I think if you can get into melee with goblins, if you break up into smaller groups, like you do like 2x2 here, 2x2 here, 2x2 here, you can then move forward and attack goblins, and you can't get your whole team rooted by a shaman, in which case eventually some of your guys will get into melee and you'll absolutely decimate goblins. So I would really give everyone a point there. The crossbows are like okay, but they're probably comparable to bows. Alright, next up we have barbarians. Thralls don't count, they're stupid easy, anyone can kill a thrall. Reavers, probably have to give it to the crossbow. But the bows are still fine against Reavers. But Chosen, pure bows are trash. Throwing weapons, like javelins with great armor pen, are really good against Chosen. Not gonna lie, really good. So are crossbows, however. And crossbows and bill hooks as well are also really good against Chosen. So I would give the point to archer throwers and the polearm crossbow build. But I would generally prefer to have the crossbow build, just for the I like that more. I think it's probably more useful because you can't carry that many throwing weapons. Like, I guess you could just drop your bow the entire fight and just be a thrower. But at which point, again, you're a thrower and not an archer thrower. So the archer thrower isn't really what we're talking about anymore. Alright, next up we have Ancient Undead. Pure archers, pure garbage. Archer throwers, again, are only good because of the throwing part. So we're seeing that archers are pretty fucking, like, not on the table here. If you're discounting the ones where everyone gets a point, so far, pure archers have nothing. They really excel in, like, small orc camps against berserkers, and that's really it. That's where the archers so far have their, like, big point, is small orcs. The archer throwers have more points, but a lot of that is being carried by the throwing weapons. Ancient Undead are, bill hooks, two-handed weapons, duelists, everything will destroy them except for bows, and, like, spears. Alright, next up we have zombies. Shooting a zombie with a bow is, like, cool, I guess, but, like, the zombies, when you have 30 zombies on you and they start getting around your flanks, you can't afford to have a guy with no melee attack. If he's only ranged, he can't do anything, because, he's locked in melee. It's a real pain. The archers have to walk away, they can't hit Geist. There's a whole issue here. So zombies, not too great. Archer throwers, however, are good against fallen heroes because of the armor pen, in the same way they are good against Ancient Undead or Chosen. But again, the crossbow polearm hybrid does the job just as well, if not better. Now, talking about Necromancers. Necromancers, which I will give another big point to the archers, are like basically made for archers to be killed. I have made the Necrofucker build, the crossbowman who, with Pathfinder, will run around the map and then end up shooting. He will end up shooting Necromancers from behind. I will load that up real quick. Let's find that guy. That is a decent build, and that does work. I would bring an archer to that fight anyway, but nevertheless, let's look at this. Here he is. You know, he's got that good melee defense, that decent HP, really good stuff. You know, he's got a plus damage crossbow, and what he does is he just literally, even especially on like forest or snow with his Pathfinder, he runs around and he gets the fallen heroes only guard the front and not like the sides. So when he gets behind the fallen heroes, he can shoot the Necromancer, and it's easy money. So I could give points to the crossbow polearm. I'm not here just to make the archers look a little bit better, but Necromancers really are the way to go. Let's get the what did I have? I had these three over here. All right. Okay. Now, next up, we have beasts. I'm talking like wolves, hyenas, spiders. Like, I gave the point to the melee build just because, sometimes they have like footwork or large numbers and they'll get on you. Like, I guess this is kind of a moot point. I wouldn't really count it. Like, who cares what you use to kill like fucking hyenas? It's not a big deal. So I gave the point to the melee, but that is really doesn't mean much. Southern city-states, I'm really talking engineers here. You need archers to kill the engineers. That is, when I was making this video, I'm like, yeah, archers kind of suck, but then I remembered engineers. And you really probably can't do that with crossbows. Like, you can use a Necrofucker build to go and kill Necromancers. And you can use crossbows to kill your Orc Berserkers. But you really can't use crossbows to kill engineers. I don't know what the solution is to that yet. I can probably think of one eventually, but I don't know what it is now, and I don't think it's crossbows. It might be bow polearm hybrids, but at which case, I don't want a bow polearm hybrid. I want this build, or I'd want an archer. So I'd probably just use a pure archer in this fight. Again, I don't want archer throwers because I'm not throwing at the engineer. So pure archers really get the point here. Archer throwers get the point because they have a bow. And finally, we're talking about mercenaries. This includes literal mercenaries, along with like sword masters, master archers, and hedge knights. So, if you're talking about master archers, bows get the point because they can actually hit them, like somewhat reliably. If you're talking about sword masters, I guess bows kind of get the point for being able to hit them, but like, you don't do much. They have nimble, so a bow isn't going to do much. Crossbows, on the other hand, will do a lot to master archers if they hit. Melee will hit master archers. The crossbow does do a lot to sword masters. And when you're talking about the actual mercenaries, like the melee dudes, the throwing weapon will get you some points. The throwing weapon will be able to do some good damage to that armor. Like, the 260 mail that they'll bring. They can throw through that. You can bill hook through that, and you can crossbow through that. You can't, like, pure longbow through that. It just doesn't work. Or it doesn't work well. If you can get Headhunter, maybe, but sometimes they have helmets. Most of the time they have helmets, so I wouldn't worry about it. Or I would worry about it, rather, sorry. Alright, now, we see archer throwers got a really decent amount of points on the board. Crossbow polearm hybrids got a majority of the points. A lot of it is because you can do a lot of shit in melee. But, so now the next chart here is these are the points where, I'm not counting stuff like Brigands where everyone got a point because it's like stupid easy. But in places where archer throwers and polearm crossbow builds got the point, what is better? So I'm looking at nobles. Overall, if we're going for arbalisters, you want ranged, and the polearm crossbow build can do that. But once those arbalisters are gone, what would you want? I would rather have a melee bro, I'll be honest, than a thrower. I think the melee bro is going to do more. The throwing build, like, a lot of them have kite shields, they're shield walling. I don't know. I mean, they have high melee defense as well. But and I mean, you could if you have Headhunter on the pure archer build, I guess you could, or maybe on your archer thrower, you could headshot a sergeant or some of those like 45 hats on Billman. But overall, I think I'd rather have a melee bro. For small orc camps, like I said before, you got to give the point to the archers. Archers, not really throwers, but archers over the melee bro. I don't really want to engage in melee with orc berserkers. Now, if we're talking about goblins, I think if you're sitting still, like I've made videos of in the past, you obviously want archers over crossbows. But if you're going to try to engage goblins in melee, you want the melee bro. So I gave the point to the goblins because I think my strategy has now become to actually break up into those small groups, avoid being mass rooted by shamans, and then get into melee with the goblins. Next, barbarians. I think the melee bro is better than the ranged than the thrower build. The archer, again, we bad, so we're talking about throwing weapons here. And I think the bill hook and the crossbow, I think, is comparable to the throwing weapon. And when you add on the bill hook on top of that, I think that really wins out over the throwing weapons. Ancient Undead, absolutely no question I would rather have a melee bro than a throwing weapon. It does more. The melee weapons, the skeletons will run up right into you, into melee range, and you get a full free round of melee attacks. Like, before they get their shield wall up, and then, you know, there's a really good way to use that melee to your advantage, and I think it's better than throwing weapons. Fallen heroes, I'd rather have the melee bro. Throwing weapons could arguably be just as good against fallen heroes as melee, but fallen heroes come with zombies, and we've already discussed how melee bros are better against zombies than fallen heroes are. Good thing about melee bros as well, which I didn't mention, is a bill hook can decapitate. A pike can't decapitate, but bill hooks can decapitate, so you can actually stop zombie resurrections. And finally, mercenaries. I think I'd rather have the two-handed hammer, two-handed mace, the great sword, the great axe, the bill hook, the duelist over a couple of throwing javelins. Like, those mercenaries got big armor, and you know, the throwing weapons I don't think really do it for me. I haven't used throwing weapons extensively, so pure throwers, I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about archer thrower hybrids. That's where I've used my throwing weapons. And you know, I've found a lot of success in just using these crossbow builds. These 3 crossbowmen right here are carrying me way, way more than my archers are. Like, it's kind of ridiculous. I just haven't used these. I haven't used these 2 archers in probably like 300 days on this campaign. Maybe 200. Definitely listens like 200 days on this campaign. Just like, don't use them. And for legendary locations like Black Monolith, you know, I really think that you would want to not have archers there. Throwers, you would definitely run out of throwing weapons, so you want that crossbow build. And in team, if you're playing gladiators or you're playing lone wolf, you only have 12 dudes. You can't really afford to have. You definitely can't afford to have pure archers because they are not flexible enough. Because you have to bring those 12 people, and the archer just isn't going to do it. The archer thrower, I wouldn't bring the archer thrower either, because again, maybe for necromancers, but you can use the necrofucker build, and then for for engineers, I don't know what that would be. Maybe you could have an archer there, but that is such a rare fight that you're fighting southern city-states. I've done that like once. I've had one holy war in 542 days when I fought the south. You can already just choose to fight the north, so I wouldn't count that as a real point. So, you know, you do want range. Range is very good, but I think it's these dudes here. These 3. These the crossbow polearm hybrids. If you want to know how to build this build and how it plays, I have a video on that. I think I'm gonna probably retire my archers in future campaigns. They've done their job. You can see the build sheets right here. This is typically what I wouldn't take fucking underdog. I don't know why I have underdog. I probably would have taken headhunter here. I don't. Maybe gifted instead. I misclicked underdog, so my bad. But you can see my builds for archers if you ever want to. I don't think I'm gonna make an archer build because I don't think I recommend archers anymore. I used to like them, but I don't anymore. Comment below what you think, because this is still a topic that I'm wrestling with. I've come to the conclusion I don't like archers, but I would love to hear differing opinions. I hope this has been helpful and informative, and I'll see y'all soon.